Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Testimony. I'm your host, Matt McGuire, along with your co-host, Caleb Estes.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Brother Brady couldn't join us this evening, so we're going to miss him. But Caleb, how's everything going with you?
Going great.
Great. Anything new?
Nothing new. Building a chicken run.
Yeah. Well, really nothing new with myself. I've been taking my kids to youth camps, and God's been helping them. So we've been busy in that aspect, but it's always fun. I tell everybody at work when our youth camp's coming up here soon, and I tell people at work that I lose more sleep at camp than I do when I go to work. Usually because I'm up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then wake back up at 6:30, 7 o'clock. But it was good. We just got out of Roberts Road Youth Camp, Roberts Drive. When I say road, but Brother Zach Kaufman preached the nights, and Brother Ben Morris preached the mornings. It was a really good camp. I think several got saved. Last night, Brother Zach preached on the Holy Ghost, and they ended the sermon on Brother Ben telling that story he told at the fire conference, and the Lord really moved. So we was thankful for that. Glad you're with us. We do have a special episode today coming with you. We're going to be we're recording this on June the 27th, and we have a testimony this evening for you. That is the anniversary of today. Two brothers that their life would change on this date back 14 years ago, 2012, I believe. That God would make a change in their lives to help each other, and bless them. We'll just kind of get into it. Brother Jeremy Henson with us. How you doing, Brother Jeremy?
Doing pretty good.
Great. Brother.Blake Henson, how you doing?
Good.
Great. So for those of you that don't know them, I'm sure a lot of people will know, but Brother Jeremy needed a kidney transplant, and Brother Blake was a donor and match and was able to donate his kidney. And so we'd like to kind of just dive into that story here and see, kind of what their mindset was in the beginning of it. When they found out, and when they got to the surgery, and when they ended. Brother Caleb recently went through this, so I'm gonna let Brother Caleb kind of take over, and we'll just have conversation. Say that. You will be blessed. Hopefully you'll stay for the whole episode.
Yeah, so obviously I've known both of them my whole life. They can't say the same for me because they're older than I am. But we all went to Miamisburg for a long time. I was there for 17 years of my life as well. And we've all worked there. As far as I know, each one of us, while attending Miamisburg, received the Holy Ghost there. We were all called to preach there, and so we all grew up there together, had some fun times, from dodgeball in the fellowship hall and different late night fun things that we did, lock-ins and all that. So I know these two. I've grew up with them. They are friends of mine, and they will be friends as long as the Lord has us on this earth, and even through eternity. But I will start with Jeremy. So, Jeremy, just kind of tell us a little bit how the storyline went. What the storyline was like when how you started feeling when maybe you guys realized there was something wrong, kind of how you went to the doctor, got the diagnosis, things like that.
Okay. Well, it started when I was about 3 years old, maybe a little bit before. Um, my mom would notice that I drank a lot of just water and juice and stuff like that. I was always drinking something, and different ones would come to her with concerns, Mama, and different ones would say, "Hey, he drinks an awful lot. You need to take him to the doctor and see what's going on. Why he's always doing this and this and that." And it started then, and we went to the doctor, and they realized that my kidneys weren't growing the way they were supposed to. So my body was growing, but my kidneys weren't keeping up with them. And they have a big, huge word that it's called, and I cannot pronounce or say it, but
None of us will probably know it either.
right.
Yeah.
But to narrow it down, they just called it kidney reflux, is what they were saying. But found that out, went through years and years and years and years of treatments, different tests, different things. They had told me for years, you're going to have a transplant, and it started right when I was 3. He'll probably have to have a transplant. A couple years, go back in a couple years. Yeah, he's still okay. We can push it back a couple more years, push it back, and it just kind of kept going on and on and on, pushing it back further, pushing it back further, and then it came to the time where they couldn't push it back no more. We went through all the steps of talking about dialysis and going through that. Thank God I never had to go through that part. God worked it out to where I didn't have to go through all that. But right around that time, that's when Blake had just turned 18, and that was the age that he had to be able to donate. And he's the only brother of mine that matches our was a match. Blood type, yes. And it's kind of funny because in our family, each one's a different blood type. So I'm the oldest. I'm O. Then Kyle was the second. He was A. Blake was the third. He was O. Travis is the fourth, and he's A. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But he was the one that was the closest and best match. And when it came that time, he said, I want to do this. I want to step up. I want to donate, and I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of that. As far as all my brothers and sisters' blood types, I couldn't tell you them. I know my blood type is AB negative, so really that was one way God blessed me, was that I have the blood type that can accept from anybody. So I had several different ones kind of come to me about donating. A couple people even here in the church offered to. My mother-in-law was the first one to go through the whole process. She got to the meeting with the surgeon, and there was something that another doctor missed in her file from previous years, and it made him not feel comfortable doing the transplant with her. That's when Sammy and my cousin Jake both came to me. Jake was a little more lenient on wanting to do it himself in protection of Sam. She's out of the Mammal's grandkids. She's not the youngest, but
She's not.
but she's mom's youngest, and the ones that are real close to. Out of all of us that have been real close to Mammal and grew up close to her and stuff like that, she's probably the youngest there. But other than Dakota, so she went through everything. Obviously, she was fresh married, not even a year married yet, just a few months, and so there was some decisions. Obviously, Brother Brady's not here, but he was part of that decision-making process.
Yeah.
They had to figure that out, and I, too, am thankful. I've got a kidney that, they do all these blood works on us. Brother Jeremy's probably at the maybe once a year state or however long it goes out to. Right now I'm at the every 2 weeks part, and but my function has been at 100% for the past several months now, which is
That's awesome.
beyond anything I could have thought for.
Yep.
You know, when we had surgery, they told us we'll be happy with 60%, but it just goes to show that when God's hand is in the mix of things, He
Yep.
works it out better than we could ever put it together.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
yeah.
does.
And so that's awesome to hear. Like I said, I've known these guys for a long time. To be honest, I didn't know all the treatments Brother Jeremy ever went through. Brother Jeremy is not the kind of guy that throws his problems at people.
Yeah.
I've known that, and I've he's not the kind of guy. I'm sure he talks to his wife and his mom and family. That's pretty normal, but he doesn't go tell everybody the downs of life. He'd much rather tell you how God fixed it,
Right.
and that's something to admire in a man. But we'll switch over to Blake. Obviously, Brother Jeremy told us, when you turned 18, that was the time that you were able to. So what went through your mind? What was the what did it look like making that decision for you? What made you say, without a doubt, I have no doubt I'm going to do this?
Well, as throughout my whole childhood, like Brother Jeremy said, just we would hear mom has to take Jeremy to the doctor. The numbers aren't coming back great. They tried this. I mean, Jeremy, anytime there was somebody getting prayer for, Jeremy was up there. They were praying for him. We did prayer cloths. I mean, we had faith and we believed that God was going to heal him.
Yeah.
And just, I can remember there was a morning, it was a Sunday morning, Brother Matt, and Mom got a call from the hospital. He had went for some blood work earlier, and they called and kind of scared her. Said, get him to the hospital. His numbers are bad. And we were getting ready for church while my brother had parked in the driveway behind my mom's car. And she was in such a hurry, she backed out and hit my brother's car. And so that was just a
C28 Camaro.
Oh, no.
it was a bad morning. It was already got bad news, and then
Yeah.
that happened. And but I can just remember that, throughout my childhood, hearing, he was not the numbers weren't getting any better, or they would get better for a little bit and then get bad. And just so happened, and I believe the Lord was in it 100%, that when he got bad enough to where they said he'd need a transplant, I was a couple months after turned 18, and I knew that you had to be 18 in order to do that. And so I just went up to Mom and I said, Mom, I'd like to be tested. I think I could do this. And at first she was like, no, you can't. You don't know what you're talking about. I was like, no, I think I can do, I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And went through the test. They took vials and vials and vials of blood and had to go back multiple times, and all sorts of different testing, psychological testing. I don't know that they'd had somebody be that young before to give it up. So they wanted to evaluate me to make sure I was in a stable mind and knew what I was doing. But God really had his hand in all of it.
Yeah.
And it sure enough, it came back. It was a match.
I think that's one thing that we, with Sam, when she said she wanted to do that, I think there were some reservations. Not necessarily that we didn't want her to do it for even Caleb. We want to make sure you're young.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that what comes with this is, there are things that you need to make sure you study and different things. But when God's in it, doesn't matter what anybody says. If God's told you to do it, then you need to do it.
Yeah.
I do want to. I do have a question for you, Bro.Jeremy, quick, and then we'll come back to Brother Blake. So you said that you kind of, I'm assuming around 3, you kind of knew there were some things that you physically. So, but when did it really click then, or did you know? I mean, don't want to say it as you didn't know, but 3 years old is young, and 3-year-olds know. I mean, my sister died at 3 years old, and I think the reason why God took her is because she was ready to go to heaven, and she proclaimed that. But well, I guess when did it really sink in that, hey, I've got some issues. It's kind of causing problems, and I guess when did it kick in, and then what did you think about Brother Blake when he came to you with that decision that he would like to get tested?
The like at 3, I actually ended up having a surgery that they did to try to correct the issue to see if that would help fix the problem, or at least fix it enough to sustain me, or however that was. So I went through that surgery. So at 3, I'm not sure that I had the mindset exactly of, eventually down the road I'm going to have another surgery to fix this. But one thing I don't want to sound proud of this, but I've always had almost too much faith. I believe forever that one of these doctor's appointments I'm going to go in and the doctor's just going to be like, well, we don't know what happened, but we don't need to see you no more. That's the kind of faith I had that God was going to fix it.
We need more of that.
Yeah. And
for sure.
I truly did believe that. I'm just waiting on the day. One of these days I'm going to go in and sit down, talk to the doctor. They've done the blood work. They're going to come in and they're just going to be like, well, we really don't know what happened, but we don't need to see you no more. You're good to go. You're all clear. But it didn't end up happening that way. And, the devil fought me after I had the transplant. Just about that, saying that, for years we prayed for my healing. Like Blake said, prayer lines after prayer line after prayer line. Anytime someone was getting prayer, they were bringing me up there where I was getting prayer. I'm sure my name is in every prayer box within a 20-mile radius. Any church we went to, and we would travel to different churches with the family, go and do singings and different things like that. So, any church we were in, we told them, be praying for me. This is what's going on. And, like I said, I had that faith that was going to happen. And then, like I said, right after, it was like the devil was like, ha ha, I got you. You thought this was going to work out in this way, that you were going to get healed, and God didn't heal you. But I had to pray through that and realize that God did heal me. He just didn't do it the way I wanted him to.
Yeah. So you're battling that, but I don't know if you probably ever shared that with anybody, knowing you maybe not.
Probably close people. Maybe not. Yeah. A lot of people know that, but
right. So, but Blake, knowing that he needed the transplant, and when you got that clarity, I guess, in your mind that you were going to donate, or that's one purpose God had you here for. Is the way I take that, and which we have them, and a lot of times we miss them, and we don't get God's purpose because we don't allow Him to show us what His purpose is.
Right.
And but in doing that, I'm assuming you had an immediate peace when that came over your mind. This is what I was brought here to do, or at least one purpose in life, and this is where I can make a difference in what I can do. You weren't married at the time, right?
No.
So did you? And I don't want you to give too much information, but I'm assuming there are probably people telling you, as you stated earlier, you can't. Your mom said you can't. You can't do that. But overall, was it more when you found out that did you have people come and talk to you saying that you shouldn't do it, and not necessarily that you have to answer that, but when you got the peace, how did you see it translate to everybody else? You knew God wanted you to do it. What was the process of, okay, now everybody sees what I see, and
Yeah, yeah. So with my mom, that was kind of her initial reaction. Was the
with any mom,
once
right?
I was firm with it, and I was like, yeah, I can do this, mom. I believe this is what needs to happen. She was for it.
Yeah,
As far as outside, we didn't have. I didn't have a lot. I will say the hospital wanted to have a psychiatrist talk through it,
yeah,
and it wasn't that, like I said, I was 18. I was old enough to make that decision. They just wanted to make sure that I had thought it through with me just
yeah,
turning 18. And I can recall within that, they'd asked me, there's like, well, why do you want to do this? And I was like, well, I love my brother, I see how he suffers with this, and I've got 2 kidneys, and yes, there's chances for things to go wrong, but there's a I have faith that it will go right, and
you've got to have faith, and
yeah,
and I think in these types of situations, I think what Caleb and I have talked about where, you know, you've got to have faith, because if you don't, you're pretty much gone, as far as you'll get discouraged, and I think that the way that in your case and Caleb and Sammy's case, now Sammy was married, she had Brady and different things, they had to
yeah,
discuss that and make that decision together. But I think ultimately, family member, your brother, Sam, you asked Sam, I have asked Sam, that's my brother.
yeah,
There's nothing going to stop me. If I can do something, I'm going to do something, and I think that faith kind of feeds together, where um, you looked at him and or Bro.Jeremy, and I'm sure you've seen somebody that obviously needed God's help, but you've seen somebody that you loved, and that knew, hopefully deep down, that God was going to move, and faith is a key point of what we have to have that peace of God moving, God touching, and just in Caleb and Sister Sammy's, I've had the front row seat to that. It amazes me, what kind of faith comes in, and how God helps people make it through those types of things. You go from a high to a low, where I have a donor, they don't match. They get all the way to the end and don't match. And then all of a sudden, God brings up this other plan in the background that you didn't even know about. Where at one
Yeah.
point you guys are scared, but Caleb, I don't know that he was, ecstatic that Sammy was going to try and be tested. But when it's kind of, you see God's hand moving in it, and you say, okay, this is the point where I know God's in it, and God's going to move and touch.
I like how in the Bible it says in Hebrews 11:6, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is. So you must believe that he is God Almighty.
Yeah,
And that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him.
right.
Yeah, in comparison to this whole thing, Brother Jeremy was talking about how there was a time where, the devil was fighting him. And I guess for me, with my kidneys slowly failing, because for me it was going to a nephrologist every couple weeks, and over a process of about 2-ish years, 2.5 years, watching my filtration rate drop. Sometimes big amounts, sometimes a little bit smaller amounts, but I never really saw it go up. And that was actually one thing when they diagnosed me. They told me the kidney disease that I had wasn't reversible. So there is more than one type. Mine was chronic kidney disease, and so it's not reversible. People can fall into, I don't know I call it regular kidney disease. I don't know that that's the right medical term for it, but I have heard of people being able to reverse that a little bit and have their filtration rate go back up. But I guess during that time, I'll say too, there was a time where the devil starts fighting you. Brother Jeremy, were you married when you had the surgery?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't have any kid.
I had one.
One kid. Okay. So see, it's been I was
We
young and at
actually
youth camp when you guys
announced
had surgery.
when I went in for the surgery, Ethan had a shirt on underneath his coat that said "Going to be a big brother." We had just found out we were pregnant with Levi.
Wow. Okay. So for me,
So you were gonna announce that you were having Levi
Yeah.
when you're going into surgery?
I was actually back in surgery, and
Wow.
they took the jacket off, and somebody noticed, and yeah,
We'll have to
That's
come. We'll have to
crazy.
come back to that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Go ahead.
well, what I'll say is I had a wife and 3 kids at the time, and as father and a husband, as you can agree with, things start going through your mind. You're trying to pray about it, right? You're trying to have faith. Trying to figure out what's God's plan here for me, different things like that. At the same time, there's that little bit of a worry that sets in because you're like, man, I got to put food on the table. I've got to make sure your boy, my 3 boys at the time, they're taken care of. They know. I want to make sure they know about Christ, which we put them in a Christian school and stuff. And but I will say there was a time, and I'll ask you if there was a time like this for you. But there was a time where I went. It was not very long before they put me in the hospital to put me on dialysis. I went to a camp meeting at Brother Todd Hatcher's church, and the preacher got up and preached, and it was a great message. I believe it was actually Brother Dennis Heath was supposed to preach that night, but I believe Brother Michael preached the little Vesper service, and it kind of just went into the main service. And Brother Dennis didn't feel like he needed to really go any farther. So they started praying for some people. At the time, Brother Todd's church was, he was praying for different ones in his church. They didn't have a bass player, so I stepped up and asked if it was okay if I played the bass for them. So while I was up there, Brother Todd grabbed his chain off of the Bible stand, and he was talking, and he said, he got up from the Bible stand. Brother Todd, I had not talked to him about any of this. I don't know if you had.
I don't think he knew anything.
As far as I know, he didn't know anything, but he got up from the Bible stand and he grabbed that chain, and he was talking about how he felt like somebody, a man in the church, was wrapped in a chain where the devil was telling him he was going to die. And he even went as far to say that he felt that it was not anybody that attended his church. And it was like it was like it hit me right in the chest. And I almost, in a sense, started trembling a little bit. And the reality of what the devil had been telling me kind of set in. And I got up, and I don't remember who I walked up to. It might have been Brother Joey. I walked up to him, and I said, he's talking about me. And and Brother Joey told me, he said, go grab the chain from his hand. And I went and I grabbed the chain from his hand, and I walked down to the front, and they all started praying for me. And I threw the chain on the ground. And from that moment forward, I won't say I never got nervous or worried a little bit. But from that moment forward, I had a promise. Because Brother Todd had even went as far to say that before I went and grabbed that chain, he said, I don't feel like he goes to my church, but I feel like the Lord wants me to tell him, you will not die. And I got prayed for that night, and I had that promise to hold on to. So with that story, is there anything that you can relate back to in your time where you felt like God really intervened to kind of give you a little extra strength to carry on?
Like I was telling Brother Matt earlier, I think I almost feel like I had an overabundance of faith going into it. I think a lot of my battle was more afterward. You were talking about like providing for your family and all of that. After the surgery, I was off for a couple of months. Um, my FMLA was running out, this and that. We were going back, getting tested. You're talking about every 2 weeks. I remember those days, the people at the clinic know your name. You walk in,
Yeah.
hey, good to see you again.
Yeah.
Come on back. And they already got everything ready and all that. I remember those days going through that. But as I was getting tested, I think they had planned for me to be off for 3 months. And something happened near the end of the testing they wasn't real crazy about. It just wasn't good enough, so they put me off for another month. And that's when I began worrying about, what am I going to do about job, money? We're getting low. I had short-term disability, and I was receiving money from that, but it was way less than what I was normally making or used to making, and all that. And that time I was more worried about the things of life, the bills, what am I going to do in that situation. But as when Blake came to us and told us, that he was planning on doing it, and once we had got him tested and everything like that, it almost kind of went into a cruise control for me. It was like, this had to have been God's plan all along. I just didn't know it. So I just kind of got into the mode where, okay, once we're at this point, let's get it done. Let's get it over with. I'm ready to be on the other side of it, not have to worry about it. Let's get in there, and God will take care of us. I had no doubt in my mind whatsoever that we were going to come through on the other side with flying colors. And I mean, it just once he got to that point. Now, until then, there was obviously worries. What's going to happen? How are we going to trying to figure out how to get on the list of donors and all that, and going through all the steps of if you're possibly going to have to go through dialysis, all of that. There was worries with that type of stuff, but as far as once they had it locked down, you are going to have the surgery. This is what's going to happen. And once Blake stepped up and said, I'm going to donate, and we've done the testing, everything lined out, it looked good. It was more of a relief to me than a worry about, I went into the surgery. I actually, it could have been the Benadryl because my allergies were aggravating me that morning, but they wheeled me out, and I fell asleep going. I don't remember leaving the waiting room. I was at peace. I was ready to get it done and over with. I'm just like, I'm just gonna fall asleep and let them do their thing and see you on the other side. It was kind of I had that peace that God gave me. There's no other way to explain it. I had no worries whatsoever going into that surgery room. It just, God gave me a peace through it.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that part as far as the peace when everything kind of works out like that. It was Lord of Glory Youth Camp. I was preaching a Vesper service that week, so we attended the camp, and that was the week that Sammy got the news that everything was a complete match, and that she was going to be able to donate. And I had part of me, because I was on dialysis and different things like that. At one point, I had the easier form of dialysis, really. I was able to do it at home, and it's called peritoneal dialysis. But it still was kind of just almost aggravating, annoying to do, in a way. I wasn't doing it uh, no, I was doing it 5 nights a week. I took Sundays and Wednesdays off. And then, I hooked up the other 5 nights. It's an 8-hour process and things like that. And honestly, I was just, I was kind of in the same boat. Um, before they put me on dialysis, every time I had a nephrologist appointment on the way there, I'm driving in the car praying, God, make me a living testimony of your power, And that was what I prayed every time. And God had some different plans lined out for me. There's been ways, even through after I got put on dialysis, through the whole process, there's other things God moved in my life while taking me down this road. And don't know that they ever would have got fixed, or not that God couldn't do it, but maybe I wouldn't have let it happen if I wouldn't have went down this road. But I will say that as far as going into the surgery, um, you know my wife, she is a worrier when it comes to surgeries and sickness and stuff like that. And especially me being her husband, she was a nervous wreck that day. But as far as me, I just felt like everything was lined up correctly. It was like, you know, the people that say the stars aligned. This was just God's will aligning. It felt like, and I wasn't, I wasn't, wasn't nervous about it. I mean, I had some questions about a couple things that they had told me previous, and so I asked about them, and it didn't ended up being any kind of issue. We prayed that they'd be able to take one of Sam's kidneys out, because if they had to take the other one, she was going to have a bigger incision. They were able to take the one that we wanted. We prayed that, they were worried that when they put the kidney in, it wouldn't work automatically, because it may fall asleep, and if it falls asleep, it could take weeks to months to wake up fully. But when they put it in, it worked right. As soon as they hooked it up, it started working the way it was supposed to. So God just had it lined up. But when they were wheeling me out to surgery, I remember my wife she had tears in her eyes. She told me she loved me, gave me a kiss, and they were all headed to the elevators as they wheeled me out. I gave my pastor a little salute on the way by, and he saluted back. And she looked at him, and he looked at her. He said, "He seems perfectly okay," and she said, "Yeah, he's the calm one." But it just was that way. When everything lines out that way, you didn't think it would. You had questions if, because obviously Blake knows the process of getting tested. Like you said, they take lots of blood. They do lots of testing. They also do that to us, just in case you're wondering. They took a lot of our blood too. Uh, they,
Years and years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We might have got a head start on you guys in reality, but they they do all those crazy tests, stress tests, and all that fun stuff. So once it all lined out, it was just like, there was no no other way I could have seen it happening, from this point on. And then, but I will say, for Sammy, there was a little bit of some anxiousness after she got the phone call. I remember, we showed up at camp, and she couldn't talk to me. She was excited.
Yeah.
She was happy, but at the same time, we all know Sammy. She is emotional, and she couldn't even have a conversation with me without starting to cry. So she was overwhelmed by it. But there was also, I think, a little bit of anxiousness just because she had just got married, and her and Brady had to make this decision and stuff fast. And I'll ask Brother Blake, was there a time, you've kind of expressed it to us, but was there ever a time, because for Sammy, there was a time where at that youth camp where Sister Allison Gross felt like praying with her. She prayed with her, and the Lord told Sammy that he was already there. And so was there a time where you felt like you were supposed to do it, right? Like you explained, like you told your mom, like, this is what I feel like I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
And everybody agreed. But was there ever a time where you kind of just, other than that, where everything fell into place and it was really just God's confirmation you had it right?
Brother Caleb, I didn't really get a secondary confirmation. I felt like whenever God put it in my heart, you know, not to sound prideful or boastful at all, but that's what I.
Yeah.
It was enough.
Yeah, it was enough.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's good. So, one thing I'll ask, this is probably just for kicks, if you will. After surgery, obviously, um, you don't go home same day. So, both you was probably in the hospital a few days, 1 or 2 maybe. Myself, I was in the hospital for a week. It was mainly just blood pressure issues. I actually ended up, all it was that I was holding some water in my abdomen, and they gave me a water pill, sent me home the next day. So, super easy to fix, but they didn't seem like that would have been the issue right off the bat, so they were trying other stuff. But is there a memory from day of surgery or a couple days after that you guys remember? A lot of people talk about when I came out of surgery. Don't know why I do this, but it's been almost every surgery I've had. I start making people laugh. Brother Bruce, one time when I went to the hospital for high blood sugar after playing a game I shouldn't have played at youth camp, Brother Bruce come and stood at the end of my bed, and he put his hands out, and he was like, "What in the world were you thinking?" At Dayton Children's. And so this time I came out of surgery, and when they wheel me in, they put me, against the wall or whatever. My wife comes to my side, and Brother Bruce is standing at the end of the bed, and I looked at him. I said, "Don't ask me what I was thinking." And so I tend to, make people laugh and stuff like that. My wife says that every time I've come out of surgery, I've always told her she's beautiful. I still believe that.
Yeah.
But
That's just true. That's
Yeah.
not, that wasn't God.
yeah, but is there something, in there, just a little memory that you guys have from around that hospital time where you guys, something maybe,
For me, I think I was more the opposite of you. It wasn't me making people laugh. It was something made me laugh, and then I cried because
It hurt.
it hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
And then I also remember when I was finally able to start walking down to Blake's room, which he was a couple rooms up for me, I think. And I remember going over and visiting him, checking on him, making sure he was all good.
That's I was going to ask that because, so you went to his room first.
Yeah,
So-
I think Sammy came to mind first.
Yeah, she was like out of the bed, after like the first, was it the second
The
day that
next
she
day
came?
she came to the room, I'm pretty
She,
sure.
she came walking, speed walking,
Wow.
almost running. But it was neat because when she came in the room, there's a picture. Was you sitting in a chair at the time, or? I don't.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure you had this too, where they start you on that IV medicine. They asked me if I was allergic to rabbits, because apparently this has some kind of something to do with rabbits in it. It was part of the anti-rejection and stuff like that. But they had to give me Benadryl that day, also through my IV,
Yeah.
which I don't know if it does this to you, but Benadryl knocks me out. And so I had Benadryl all day. So it was just before they started that medicine, or right at the beginning, when
Yeah.
Sammy came in there, and I had sat in a chair, like you were
Yeah.
saying. And then by the time my mother-in-law showed up, I was out all day long.
Yeah.
From that.
I say that because I think you was in a chair and you started. It was right around the time you gave you the medicine. Sammy came in. She lay in your bed beside you or something?
Oh yeah, I think she took the bed for a little bit
Yeah.
because she got a little uncomfortable sitting in the chair. Yeah.
Yeah. So but it was neat to see the picture of them sitting there. They both were asleep,
Yeah.
Benadryl and stuff. But seeing, and he's not joking when he says that he was making people laugh. Some of the things, just go ask, his mom, sister, Michaela, his wife, or even his mother-in-law. I'm telling you, it was a hoot. But it was neat to finally get to see them together, sitting there, even though you couldn't keep them awake, but they to see how God had taken two siblings and drawn them even closer. And that's one thing that like after surgery that I noticed that it was a special moment.
Yeah. So, Blake, you got any fun memories other than when he walked to your room, or?
I do remember outlawing laughing or joke telling because to laugh was just
Yeah.
terrible. But we it was funny. We had kind of opposite reactions. When he got the kidney, he was doing better. I took a little longer to get better. Which didn't know at the time, but the pain medicine they were giving me. I was actually allergic to.
Oh, okay.
So I was taking the medicine the day of the surgery and all night that night. So they came in the next day. They wanted me to get up to start walking around. And so I had a little extra complications. I believe, did you go home a day before me?
I don't remember if I went home before you. I remember you went back to the hospital a couple days later for
Yeah, there
something
was
else.
some like air that had built up. It was an air pocket. I guess it's a common thing when you have surgery. But it took it a little tougher, but I think he got out one day before me, but then I was out the next day. We just had to get I had to get that medicine out of my system that I was allergic to.
Yeah. Sammy's biggest thing, I think, as far as other than, like I said, the blood pressure issue I was technically doing better. For the first couple of days, Sammy's biggest thing was she didn't want to eat and drink, and that's obviously one of the big things they want to see when they want to send you home. So, we'll move on to one more question here. Just both you guys can kind of answer it one at a time, however you want to. But um, since surgery, surgery's happened, and now we're 14 years later on this day. Like, how has life been different for you? And what are some things looking back now that you're like, man, God taught me some things right there through recovery, surgery, any of it?
I think the thing that's changed the most has been no contact sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went from playing tackle football to two-hand shove.
Two hands.
Yeah.
We've been a part of some of those games.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, as far as that goes, but obviously knowing that God had his hand in it all the way. One thing after the surgery, we didn't realize this at the time, but it was probably maybe a month after the surgery, maybe a little longer or something. I had a question, and I was like, I didn't know who to get a hold of to ask or what was going on. I don't even remember the question now. It's been that long ago, but I called up to the hospital that we had the surgery at, and I said, I need to get a hold of the transplant team. I've got a question about, what happened with my transplant, or I don't know if it was medicine or getting it or what exactly the question was, but I called up to the hospital. I said, I need to get in contact with the transplant team. How do I do that? And they said, we don't have a transplant team. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a transplant team? I had my kidney transplant there just not too long ago. And they said, yeah, after that, they closed up shop and completely did away with it. So, and they ended up telling us, I think before that the couple came, was it from Utah or somewhere out west?
Somewhere out west, yeah.
It was a husband and wife team. Flew them up here. They opened the transplant unit, in the hospital. They were only there maybe 6 months, something like that, just in the nick of time. And that hospital was 15-20 minutes away from Mom's house. I mean, we were all right there together. And I mean, just to see all the ways that God worked it out. Just,
And-
I mean,
And at that time, they were the #1 rated kidney transplant
Wow.
team in the United
United
States.
States.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
so to bring them across the country and set it up just for us in a hospital that was, right up the road from our houses and where we lived and everything like that, and just, I mean, worked it out perfectly.
That's great.
So I've got two questions for you. Seeing that God, that's awesome to get it. Was it Kettering, or where did you have it?
Miami Valley.
Miami Valley. Okay. But Caleb had his in Columbus. But that I didn't know that. It was just opened shop for you and then closed basically.
That's what it felt
That
like.
who but God, right?
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But on a less serious note here for a second, we're going to kind of go into some scripture here in a minute, but I do have to ask this question. Bro.Blake, the first one will be to you. Did you ask for a picture of the kidney? You didn't ask for it.
No.
So Sammy did, and the doctor when he came out, I don't want to give too much because we'll have her on, but showed us the kidney and everything.
Wow.
It was pretty cool, but gross at the same time. But I wondered that. But Jeremy, just to kind of go back on the story we heard before, Expect and Levi. How did the family take it? When did you find out that they found out? Did you probably didn't even really realize or comprehend?
No, it was more or less kind of an accident because that was our plan, was to have him there and unzip it and show everybody and make this big deal out of it right before I went in and all that. And we got there and it was just go, go, go. All our focus was on that we kind of actually forgot to even bring it up, anything. And I was actually back in surgery already. And I think the whole family was in the waiting room and all that. And Ethan's running around being a little 1-year-old kid and, getting into everything. And I guess he was getting warm, so somebody took his coat off and just so happened to notice what it said.
So I'd love to ask your mom and your dad and them, sister Megan rather, kind of what that was like. That is awesome.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because think about God giving your family peace. When you're sitting there, Sister Michaela was the whole time you was in surgery, but that's all she thought about. And you couldn't get, you try to make jokes or something just to kind of lighten the mood. But she never really fully took her mind off. And I'm not saying that Megan did or, that your mom did or, and the people that were there. But what a blessing that God gave. That's just awesome.
Yeah. And that's actually why his name is Levi Blake.
Oh, okay. So he's named after Blake. Gotcha.
Nice.
That is cool.
Great.
Well, that's all the questions I have. I mean, I will, but Caleb, it was meant, I'm going to go over some scripture. But I will say this, God, you can see God in this story as a whole. And I think if you're listening with us now, thank you for tuning in with us. But I hope you've been blessed. God truly has had his hand in this whole story.
Yeah, so the scripture, and I mean, I thought about the scripture going through my time as well, but John 15:13, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Obviously, I grew up with 3 siblings as well. You guys Jeremy has 3 siblings, Blake has 3 siblings, has 4 brothers. So, I will say that they're not only my siblings, they're some of my best friends.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at that, seeing that in this, it's a lot to take in, and it's very similar to Christ laying down his life for us. In this sense, nobody had to actually die, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the willingness of Blake and the willingness of Sam to, step up and say, I'm going to do this to save somebody else's life.
It was Christ.
Just like Christ would do for us. Christ would come down to earth, don humanity, walk in flesh, take the stripes, take the thorns, take the nails, and he would give up his entire life devoted to saving humanity and giving us eternal life. And that is just amazing in itself to be able to take a story that you've lived in and be able to look at it and say, I can relate that to exactly what Christ did for me 2,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I've thought about is how, um, you know, it says two are better than one. Um, there's a lot of times where we could look at what could have happened, um, and you can probably look at times since surgery where it seems as if you guys have been in a service together, or even just went to prayer for another family member, and it was different because of the outcome now, because Jeremy's still here,
Mm-hmm.
and God is always faithful to his promises. He's always good to us. And I'll say this to finish up before we close. They went through this 14 years ago. I am coming up on my 1 year mark of surgery in August of our transplant. Um, if you have something you've went through as a listener, and sometimes we go through things and it almost seems as if we can't make a rhyme or a reason for it. But I will say that while I was going through what I went through, um, I believe there was times where my mom reached out to your mom, and how did you deal with this? Do you know what this means? I have questions. You know, you know. Undoubtedly, when I know Brother Jeremy was praying for me, Brother Blake was praying for me, I went to Brother Jeremy and asked questions about the surgery, and so it may have taken 14 years later, in a sense, but this is fulfillment that God always lets us go through things for a purpose at some point. There's no meaningless thing that we go through in life with God. Yeah. He brings us through things, and in a lot of ways, it's usually because somewhere down the road it's going to help somebody else. Your testimony is going to encourage somebody else that God's faithful and God is going to move.
Yeah, this story isn't just about a kidney transplant. It's about two brothers whose bond was strengthened through one of life's greatest trials. It's about choosing love over fear, faith over uncertainty, and trusting God even through every step of the journey. Miracles don't usually happen in the ways that we imagine, right? But God's faithfulness is often seen through the people that He places in our lives. In this case, it's two brothers. He worked through a willing heart of Brother Blake as a brother to help his brother be able to live, to have life. And their testimony reminds us that God still writes stories of hope, healing, and redemption. And sometimes those stories begin with someone saying, "If I can help, I will." And so, as a listener today, this is what we're here to do beyond testimony here, is to help you live to tell your story. And if we ought to have that motto, if we can help, let's help. Because God could use you to be the hope or the inspiration or the presence that somebody needs in a hard time. I want to thank Brother Blake and Brother Jeremy for coming on with us today. Hopefully we'll be able to have them back on here. I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Beyond the Testimony. We are truly grateful that you took the time to listen and to be a part of this community.
You can listen to Beyond the Testimony on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, challenged you, or spoke to you in any way, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on our social media platforms, share your thoughts, your questions, and even your own testimony. Your feedback helps shape future episodes.
You can also email us directly at beyondthetestimony@gmail.com. Whether it's comments, questions, or topics you'd like us to cover, we want to hear from you.
Remember, you can give without loving. You cannot love without giving. Until next time, stay in the Word, stay faithful, and keep living to tell your story. This has been Beyond the Testimony.